Can't wait until we're actually live. But hello, we are live. Okay, and I just posted it, so we didn't do anything in
Yeah.
advance. But so, how are you
Info.
doing? How's life?
Good. Just living the quarantine life in the
Yeah,
cornfields. So
yeah. So, do you travel quite a bit? Are you
um
still out and about?
yes, yes and no.
Okay.
So we've got farmers that we're working with and facilities we're working with that are in probably the 5 or 6 states around us right now.
Okay.
Um so it's nice because we're going to like rural communities where COVID isn't really a big deal for a lot of those places. So it's funny because you look at driving to, like, I was in McCook, Nebraska, which is a little tiny town, middle of nowhere, um, all farm country. And it was funny because I was looking at it and was like, well, wait a minute. I got to find a hotel that isn't a total garbage pit that has bed bugs and has decent cleaning. So I was like, well, I gotta pony up for the Quality Inn, I guess, not the Motel 8, so the thought process is absolutely blowing me away. But yeah, we get out to all kinds of little places, and we had a trip to Oklahoma planned that we did a reschedule, and then we may be getting down to Arkansas here soon and all that. So it's just all over the map.
Very cool. What about personal stuff? What do you enjoy doing?
My girlfriend is a PT who
Okay.
works in Iowa, right across the river from us, and which is interesting because they have medical use over there, and everybody that she works with would be a perfect candidate for cannabis
Mm,
because they have arthritis and they have bad joints and knee and hip replacements. I mean, all the things that anybody that would ever see this would like. Oh yeah, that's a perfect person for that.
right.
But because it's a Nebraska-based company, and because of the way their connectivity is, they can't put patients on it, and they can't recommend it to patients. So she takes care of roughly 200 different people that are all high risk for COVID, and they normally be coming into a facility. Well, now she's going to their houses. So whenever we go do anything, we go out to the middle of nowhere and we go look at nature and we go do stuff, which is probably a little easier to do in Utah than it is in Nebraska. But we went out to a place that has a giant cottonwood tree in the middle of the road. So the
Yeah.
tree in the middle of
I
nowhere.
saw. You guys
And
just drove around it.
yeah, it's 10 feet in diameter. It is this giant tree, and that was super exciting. But the irony is, so 3 or 4 years ago, or even 10 years ago, driving around in the Midwest, you're just like, hey, it's the Midwest. Here's all this stuff, all these weeds and stuff. Now that I've been in the hemp industry for a couple of years now, drive by and go, feral, 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 feral. There's feral. And it becomes that little kid who just learned a new word. Like, there's hemp, hemp. There's hemp over there. Ooh, there's a big hemp stock. Ooh, that one's cool. So it's been wild, but it's what you got to do. So
That's awesome. It's very, very cool. Well, I don't know. Utah, I always wanted to play volleyball in Nebraska. But now that I'm in Utah, I'm stuck for the mountains and the outdoor activities, and it's so pretty. But when you talk about small towns, I'm from Wyoming. And so it was I mean, I laugh that that really is our small towns
yeah.
everywhere we went. And for sports, we traveled 45 minutes to an hour to each game. And it was not even thought of as being weird or different or unusual or inconvenient yeah, it's kind of
Well,
funny.
what's been fun for us, especially going out to be with our farmer. I mean, that's what we really love. I mean, we're a tech company, so we sit behind computers all day, every day, in an air conditioned apartment or office or whatever. And anytime someone's like, "Hey, you want to come out and see my grow?" Yes, done, gone.
Yeah.
And so we're walking around, we're meeting people, and they're the salt of the earth people. It's why we got into this business, because they want to share information. They want to share what they're doing. They want to be positive. They want to make a difference. And once they start wrapping their head around what we can bring to the table for them from the data standpoint, they go, oh, okay, I get it. And so when we go out and we talk to them, it's funny because everybody has that aha moment of, well, again, back in McCook, Nebraska, this guy has been growing corn for genetics for the past 20 years or more. So literally has the actual setup and everything to understand how to grow corn for genetics. and he's thinking about getting into hemp for the first time. And he and his brother-in-law have 480 acres that they're looking at. Like, corn's not so much fun anymore, but hemp's kind of cool. And so we talked to him like, all right, easy, don't go 480 acres your first year, like back easy, pump the brakes. And so we started talking to him. I was like, nobody's doing a whole lot with genetics in Nebraska. You have a background in genetics. You could totally do hemp genetics. And he laughs. He goes, I don't have a PhD. I'm not a geneticist. I'm like, neither is the guy that you would buy seeds from. Like,
not in this industry.
No, like you don't need $100,000 in college to be a genetics person in hemp. You just need to know how to grow the plant and respect the biology and the chemistry and all that. It's but it's been fun. And they're like, well, no, I need to have a degree or something. No, you don't. You need to have a passion. And so it's been great. We jokingly say that we've found the happy medium from the three worlds of, you get the people that were bringing hemp forward for the last 20 to 30 years that are the hippies. You get the business people that see the dollar signs. So now they're trying to run a business, and they're kind of butting heads with the hippies because they're like, well, no, this is a business. When you do business, this is business. Like, I get it. You sold me, but I need to run this business a little bit. And then you get the crazy science people that are PhD level smart, talking about endocannabinoids and, how you unlock the keys with it's just like, and to blend all three together, it's just hilarious. So
it's entertaining. And I always say, in no other industry, in every other industry, like you said, if you're in genetics, you need a degree or a doctorate or a master's or, at least. And in this industry, your farmer is also your accountant, is also distributing, is also growing, is also, you can experience speaks volumes in this industry. And there's not, until recently, certified education that really, you're pulling it from other industries into this industry.
Yep. Well, and so we've got a fledgling partnership with Doane University here in Nebraska. They have a cannabis certificate you can take online. So they have a program that you can do it for free if you want, and you don't get the cert. But you can go in and you can do the training and all that, or you can pay for it and you actually get a certificate when you're done. But it's a pretty innovative program they have. And, Dr. Andrea Holmes, who's running it, is super passionate about hemp and the plant and everything like that. And so she knows her stuff. So she actually got the first ISO certified lab here in the state of Nebraska because of her passion. So yeah, Etsy, buddy. Etsy, Steve. Anything you can do on Etsy.
Mason agrees also. So
yeah, I thought of it. I thought, you know what? People are going to love this hat or they're going to hate it.
No, we all need one.
And
we
it's just
a mass order.
Yeah, it's no political statement or anything like that. It's just funny to poke fun at people, especially during election year. So
I think it's great. It's awesome.
It works well.
So there's been a lot of doom in this industry. Tell me what's good. What's going good for you guys and for the industry and the Midwest? I'm specifically interested in where you guys are.
Yep.
What's happening?
Well, so we've been talking to. I won't drop the name yet. Some people on this might already know it, but we've been talking to a major rail carrier about moving hemp on rails, and the conversations we have with them are comical. I really should be recording them because they're like, well, who would grow something and not have a buyer for it? And the handful of people that were on the call with me, we all laughed, and our contact was like, that's not funny. We're like, no, it's hemp. Like people do that. And then, but like, so can you just put all the stuff in one big hopper? No. Well, that's dumb. Yeah. It's so every single conversation, it's seeing hemp for the first time through somebody's eyes who has dealt with major commodities, right? So beans and corn and dried animal blood and iron ore and you name it, they move it. And they're like, well, that's dumb. You could do this, right? No, can't do that. Why not? State, government
rules.
Rules. Well, but once you do this, then it's done, right? You never have to test it again. No. It's so they have been really, really patient, and every time they turn a corner, they kind of get hit in the face with a new shocking thing. So we're excited to be part of that program to help them, because they don't want the liability of it. The benefit we bring is like, look, we can show you all the records that somebody needs to be compliant with hemp. We can prove that it's hemp beyond what you need to have, and makes it really easy for them to do that. And when you're talking, the metric they threw out was from LA to Denver, 100 tons using a canned food model, was less than $6,000, which is ridiculous.
So then that means supply chain wise, manufacturing facilities don't have to be as close to, for that cost, that still is a very small margin added to a commodity. Or, what I hear is that's big windows open for availability on cost.
Yeah, and then so they're being very good about their due diligence and not creating additional problems, right? If you can start moving millions of pounds or tons, even for that matter, around the country like that with that kind of freedom, all of a sudden, are you going to start clogging some of these facilities that have been starving for product, right? Everyone has an operational capacity load. Well, if I take away your supply problem and just flood with what you've got, you can run 365 days a year if you don't have the capacity at your facility to do it. So it's been really, really cool working with them, and we're hopefully going to be very, very soon kind of coming forward with the full details of the program and all that. And but it's been a lot of fun talking about that. And they couldn't quite figure out how I knew so much about the railroad. And truthfully, I interviewed for a job there about 10 years ago. So I did what every good future employee would do, and I researched the hell out of the company.
Yeah.
And their stats haven't changed much. So
interesting. Good for you. So what do you see them being able to open up their line to transport hemp? What does it do for them specifically?
So the big thing for them was they wanted to some people have been doing it small scale. So to their knowledge, they haven't officially moved any product yet. Mm-hmm. They probably have, but they just haven't realized. Right. But when they do that, then it's another commodity that they can move and transport purposely. That means that they're able to set pricing based on what it is, set priority. They went from moving, if there's 10 cars, it had to wait for, enough pulling power to move that. And then they would push a load. And then you end up with, 60 cars. And then all of a sudden, yeah, we can move that. And that was the way it was for decades, centuries, maybe not centuries, but one at least. And now they're prioritizing the individual freight. So if there's a hot shot that needs to go from Omaha to Salt Lake, they can find that and they can put that on the system through technology and the data. So it's pretty cool.
I'm curious about I just read Steve's comment. Let me read it first because I got sidetracked as we were talking. Moving that much transport freight would be triple the cost. If they can get the logistics and transportation freight, this would be a game changer for the industry. Absolutely. So kind of what we were saying is,
he's playing a little insider baseball. He's talked to me about that, so he knows more than he should. So shh.
I love it. Okay, so now I've got a question on when we talk about supply chains. Something we talk a lot about at the association, and something that I'm really passionate about, especially as I've learned more about the labor and the textiles and construction and how much is exported and imported and so forth. This is a huge piece for the United States to be able to be sustainable with hemp, with any, but transportation is a main vital part that really wasn't or hasn't been talked about a lot. And as we're talking about putting facilities in, it's a big thing that most people bring up because of the cost added on top as the margins shrink. It's it's a big deal. So congratulations. I'm really excited to hear this. I'm really excited that wherever it is and wherever this happens, it's a huge benefit to Utah where I'm at because of our inland port and being able to transport and manufacture out of Utah.
Yeah. And what's interesting, so I put up in a couple different hemp groups,
Yeah.
kind of a loaded question, right? So if you want to do anything and you want to get some good feedback, put up something that is a little ambiguous and see who crawls out of the woodwork. So I put up on there, like, I have a freight company that can move 110 tons in a single load. Contact me for more information, and put my email. And literally the idea was you should email me. Nobody emailed me. Everybody direct messaged or commented on the thread or whatever, which is fine. You know, I get it. But the people that blew me up were like, you can't do that. You're lying. Here's the maximum gross vehicle weight on a bridge. And that would be a 17 axle trailer. And you can't run that for that long. And, you know, you're lying to people. You're unethical. And like, nope. Didn't say anything about trucks. Said trains. And they just went, oh, that's totally different. And that was hilarious because now those people are my friends. I mean, they're you know, we talk fairly regular with this. It's like, oh, this is totally get it. But,
well, and I think that just goes to show where the industry's going, right? We're not talking a few acres in growth. We're talking thousands and hundreds and thousands of acres that will fulfill lots of manufacturing facilities, right? What's needed? Maybe you have a better idea. You'd mentioned previously, or last time we talked, what some of these big orders like Patagonia look like. Now, how many acres are they looking at, or what is the volume needed to fulfill an order like that, so that we can kind of put into perspective?
Yeah,
Really needed in our nation to fill our orders, even for a few companies.
Yeah, I think the hard part with that is I don't think the companies that are putting in those massive orders even know yet.
Right.
You know, the biggest problem you'd have is I'm Patagonia. I'm not, obviously, but wouldn't it be great to have that problem? And I need 40 billion yards of fabric to make enough to have a seasonal run of whatever item I'm producing. Well, the risk you run is that I can't get 1 million tons of it. You know, I come significantly short, and then I have to wait to fill the rest of that order to be able to fill my line. And then I now have a hole in my offerings to the public and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. Is they need to do it big enough that they can figure out if it's going to be a long-term viable solution. I think most of them believe it is. But until there's enough critical mass, then it's a liability almost, because it's, you know, hey, I'll promise you that I will do every single product out of hemp in the next year. But I can't get enough hemp because COVID or because of the industry hasn't planted the right kind of fiber, or, you know, I mean, pick any variable. Then all of a sudden I have shareholders that are now upset. I have orders that are going unfilled. I have loans that are coming due with no product that's been sold through to pay it off. I mean, it becomes a domino effect. And it's tough. So like, so Lego last year, I believe, is going to move all of their plastic to hemp-based plastic because it's biodegradable, and you know, everybody that'll see this will know why. But they're phasing it in, I believe. They're not going, all right, on June 1st, it's all hemp. They're going to start rolling it through and gradually ramp up. But as they're producing that, Lego produces enough plastic that they are going to probably consume everything that's growing in Europe right now. So the only way that they meet that requirement is if you can export hemp from places like the United States and the Caribbean and all that kind of stuff, and get it over there. Well, the only way you can get into the European Union and the UK is if you have, I don't know, tracking of data points that prove that you have, you know, no heavy metals, no pesticides that are, you know, banned in Europe and all that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what we do. So that's where we're starting to see these moments where, like, we didn't mean to do that, but we suddenly figured out how you go from here to here, and it's been a lot of fun.
Andrew says, yay, Lego. I agree. I think that, you know, them being plastic, Langdon touched on this a lot, right? That a lot of these big companies and big car manufacturing companies, or Levi or Patagonia, that are using hemp and have done press releases, they need 3 to 6 months supply to know before they even start, that they have a supply of 3 to 6 months worth of the hemp fiber, right, that they can manufacture. And so it really is, it's that capital injection that someone's going to sit on some pretty hefty product before they're willing to buy. But the buyers are out there. I mean, and everyone that I talk to that's a US based company is looking to bring their complete manufacturing back to the United States. It's just, we've got to catch up. We've got to get people growing. And
we've been talking. One of our partners is working with us to do a pilot program in Puerto Rico. And one of the things that we talked about was, okay, so I grow they could do, I think it's 4 or 5 seasons down there with their growing conditions. So it's just going to be a factory for hemp. But so you grow all this stuff in Puerto Rico. Well, how do you get it back to the mainland? It's an island. I mean, it's not like you can fly it. I mean, that would be crazy expensive, and you can't really truck it. So you got to put it in a container and ship it. And if that shipping market isn't there, or that vehicle, I mean, imagine being pulled over by U.S. Coast Guard. I mean, that's a very real possibility. And then all of a sudden, like, no, I swear it's hemp. Don't arrest me. It's hemp. I mean, it's a risk that you take with doing that. But at the same time, we'll see what people do and where things go. But that's where we're hoping things go is a good problem to have, right? Is that all of a sudden they start seeing hemp, they go, oh, that's hemp, I got it,
Okay, so I have a question then, because I think this is part of where a lot of our legislation and lobbying is going, and concern is there aren't the education. You said it well when we were talking about your contact for transportation. Every time you go in, you're having to educate what it is, what it does, where it goes, what problems are there, so that they know how to implement a program like yours or a system like yours, right? Because they're just not even aware that you can't, you have to test it so many places, or that each place has to be regulated. I feel like a lot of the reason these law changes are coming down is to close the loop and prevent the risk, because they don't have a solution in place to solve this, right? How do we bridge that gap and get ahead of everything coming down and closing up, instead of utilizing or exploring solutions? And I understand it when it comes to risk, right? When we're talking about the risk to any large organization, let alone a state or government entity, that's a concern. They're out to protect the people. So what are your thoughts there? And
it's actually almost like we scripted that, even though we didn't. But part of what we've realized with our solution is, so we started out, we said we were a track and trace solution. I'll kind of come around to this, right? And as soon as I say track and trace, everybody that's in this call, that's in the cannabis space, just goes, because it's brutal, right? And here's why. So any of the companies that are tracking product in the cannabis space are doing it to keep it a white market product, right? So if I have a kilo that I grow and I send it through a refinement process of some kind, whether it's packaging, whatever, I need to have a kilo coming out of that. I need to have a kilo going into a dispensary or whatever the end outlet is. If I have half a kilo of that cannabis go missing, I now have black market product, which means I'm not getting paid my taxes. So I need, as an agency, I need to know where that stuff is. I need to see who's not playing by the rules. If I have 5 kilos a week go missing on my product, I know that you're doing something you're not supposed to be doing, and I can go spot check that. I mean, that's why the track and trace or even seed to sale solutions that are out there are like that, because that is the way that the government is comfortable operating with that product. Right. So I know that I'm doing everything on the legal side. We're fine with it. We'll take the revenue. We'll take all the money. We'll do all that stuff. But it needs to be white market. As soon as you do black market, it's bad. So what's different with hemp is if you lose a kilo out of a ton, nobody cares. You are the worst drug dealer in the world if you're stealing hemp and trying to sell it as marijuana. Right. It's kind of a self-correcting problem. I mean, I hate to say it, but if I sell someone a kilo of hemp and they go, hey, I smoked the whole bag, no, Uh,
all my buyers are really unhappy
yeah,
with.
I got a whole bunch of people with pitchforks and torches that are coming to your house tomorrow.
I mean, it
But
looks good, but
yeah, so we built our system based on a USDA food manufacturing facility. So we're built not to track lockstep a kilo at a time. Frankly, the volume side of it, we don't care because nobody cares about the volume side of it. It isn't a one-to-one relationship. It's the ability to recall. So when we talk to people in government or in big industries or things like that, their concerns are, well, what if I have a bad batch? What if I have one plant that has some crazy toxic chemical on it that somebody put into my CBD or whatever, and then it's dispersed because you mix it together in a 5-gallon bucket, a 50-gallon drum, pick the metric size you want. But that then goes into all these little eyedropper bottles that people use. And if one of those bottles comes back with salmonella or fentanyl or, pick any horrible scenario that is bad.
but
Huh?
it's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what people need to realize is this is what happens when these track and trace or these systems aren't put in place to, these checks and balances aren't put in place. Then we get big organizations with big power to distribute bad product.
Years ago, Gold Medal Flour had their pancake mix, I believe it was. Somebody will spot check this and for facts, whatever. But I think it was Gold Medal Flour had salmonella in their pancake mix, or the cake mix. Excuse me. They couldn't execute a detailed recall fast enough, so they pulled every product they had just to be safe because it was not worth the loss of human life. They recalled something like 2 or 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools of flour and destroyed it because there's no way you could use it for anything else because it was tainted, and they couldn't figure out if it's the one pallet or the last 6 months of production,
right? Because
they had batch dispersion problems. So they recalled it all. Well, that killed all their production for several months because they had to get rid of all their back stock, all their inventory. Their shelf space was wide open on the shelves. So what happened? Their competitors started taking over the shelf space because what was this wide is now this wide and out of stock. The retailers still need to make the money. They had to wait until more product can show up that was clean after they did a real expensive cleanup. They ended up getting bought out by their biggest competitor because they couldn't make ends meet. The recall, the poorly executed recall, killed that industry for them, or killed that particular company. When we built everything we did, we kind of realized that's potential in hemp. I mean, if you're getting to the point where you're competing for shelf space and you have a recall because of whatever reason, if you're out of stock, and I have a retail store, I don't care that you're out of stock. I just need to sell more stuff. I got light bills, I got, car payments, mortgage payments, things like that. I need to sell more stuff to make more money. And if you're out of stock, not my problem.
This is something to pay attention to. Again, that, yeah, sure, but that won't happen to me, right? But that is what's happening. And I see it happening all over, from ketchup to mustard and paper towels and Dr. Pepper. There's these big announcements that all these companies are struggling because they aren't getting packaging or bottling or labeling on, because our supply chains are broken, let alone their product itself and having to fix the problem. That's not a huge hit. Being without a lid or manufacturing capabilities of your plastic bottles is a much different hit than recalling 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools worth of product. However, it's that same, if you're not prepared and set up to protect yourself from these risks, and they're going to happen in hemp. We're under big scrutiny. We're seeing all the time that everything is being ridiculed and picked apart more so than any other industry, I would say, right now. Yeah. Especially as it's coming onto the shelves more and more. So,
well, yeah. And with the talks in DC about the FDA with CBD, right? So the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, as soon as they can put a rubber stamp on CBD, what do you think the first thing that the FDA is going to require anybody who's going to create CBD products going forward?
Tracking.
they're going to require the ability to do a fast recall, because they don't care if you have to recall everything you've made for the last 3 years or the last 2 weeks. It doesn't matter. It's the FDA. It's what they want to do. And to do a recall, so one of the companies we worked with when we built our non-hemp version of this, which is just called Inventory Batch Tracker. Very creative names, you can tell. Hemp Batch Tracker, Inventory Batch Tracker. But
it is just
yeah. But one of the things that we worked with a company that was selling beef jerky, and the way they checked in their product for beef jerky, right? I love beef jerky. If anyone can figure out how to do hemp beef jerky or beef jerky with CBD in it or something like that, I'm all in. But this guy would check in a truckload of beef, put a Post-it note with the detailed records on his chest, would finish unloading the truck, walk upstairs and stick it to a guy's computer. And that guy would put it into an Excel spreadsheet. Huh. So we made the comment like, hey, guess what? Let's just play a little game. I'm the CDC. Hey, guess what? 3 people just died eating your beef jerky. I need to know what you shipped on last Tuesday. Like, well, that's easy. I'll just pull it up in here. Like, yeah, but he's out today, sick. The password doesn't exist. Oh, you just deleted a field. Now all of a sudden, all these records. Oh, and I need to know everything else that was in that box that shipped out to that guy. It goes from a click a button, run a report to total managed chaos. And if you can't get it fast enough, and there's potential loss of human life, nobody cares. Sorry, you're done.
I got a question. I want to kind of break down on the state side or legal side, right? What are some of the risks that you're seeing that people aren't aware of, right? When you go in and you talk to some of these guys, and it's almost like an aha moment of, oh, I didn't even think about that. What are some of those main keys that maybe aren't being considered or thought about that need to be taught or discussed that Hemp Batch Tracker solves, or that a solution like this, right, brings?
Yeah.
Because I think it's very real, and I don't think the common knowledge about the problem is, I mean, even down to banking. I had somebody the other day tell me I don't have a real business because we have banking concerns.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Welcome to the industry.
Yeah. Surprise. When we first got started, we talked about who would ride shotgun with what rifle to go get paid cash in duffel bags. And, as a 6'3" former bouncer that owns a couple firearms, it was me. So I was like, thanks, guys. But the banking finally figured that out. But so the big ones that we see when we talk to people, so there's one farmer we're working with in particular who the guy he's the perfect hemp guy, right? He's a Vietnam vet who I asked him what he did in the military, and he goes, oh, smoked dope. Like, no, but what'd you do in the military? He goes, smoked a lot of dope. I'm like, well, yeah, okay, but he is the job. Yeah. Like, what was your MOS? And he's like, smoking dope. And I'm like, okay, easy.
Heard.
Gotcha. But he's the crotchety old farmer, right? And he's got the beard, and he's it looks a little dirty and all that kind of stuff. And he's got shipping containers, and he is that crazy old coot that you love, but is the same kind of guy that would put a round over your head if you showed up too late at his property. I mean, he doesn't care. So he grew cannabis in Hawaii legally years ago, and I mean he's one of those guys who's been in the industry and he knows his stuff, and he does a cool mix of hybrid and dirt with hydroponics and dirt, and guy can grow anything, is in it for the passion of it and wants to play around with it. He is the guy that we are really worried about will get popped as the poster child for who is not a compliant hemp producer in the state, because he's the guy that is an old guy, right? So I don't even want to wager a guess because he'd probably punch me the next time I see him, to be honest. But he's the guy that they go, let me see your records. And he has his hemp license taped to the door of his house. Well, he's worried about what a lot of people are worried about, which is being illegal, right? I'm growing hemp that there's a point where it becomes not hemp, and I'm not in a state where it's legal to do this. And, the fear is getting arrested or getting raided. Which is interesting because under the law, you can still grow hot hemp. You just have to destroy it. right? But people are worried, well, I'm going to grow hot, I'm going to get arrested. Well, if that's a concern, that's fine. Be smart, don't be stupid. But he has his license taped to his door. And I said, Mark, I said, if I walk in here and I'm a cop that you're afraid of, and I really want to bind you up just because I personally don't believe in hemp and I think you're doing something wrong, and I pull that label off and stick it in my pocket, where's your copy of your hemp license? It's right there. I don't see anything in that door. Well, it was there 2 minutes ago. So the detailed records and all that kind of stuff, we as a tracking company give you a digital version of that. So if that scary raid does show up, and that's why we're tracking his product right now, is because we really want somebody to call the DEA or the FBI or the local police or the USDA or somebody, call somebody and go, he is non-compliant, go bust him. And they will show up with cameras, and they will probably be a little assertive with him, and which he will probably throw a punch. He is the guy that will probably get punched several times in the face, put in handcuffs, dragged out, kicking and screaming, and we'll make the national news as here's this crazy hemp farmer fighting police, fighting camera crews, and and it's just the way he is. It's just the guy's personality. It's not that he's a bad person. It's just he's like a lovable, cantankerous old man that you got to kind of hang out with to know him. But he now has the ability with our system to basically go, hey, you know what? Cool. Glad you guys are here. Go ahead and scan this. And they scan a QR code and it pulls up everything. He is currently tracking the pH of his water, the inputs that he puts into his field. He makes a stinging nettle distilled fertilizer that's 100% organic that has all these different things. I mean, he makes his own soil. I mean, he is PhD level smart when it comes to growing this product. And now he's tracking all of it. So when someone goes, hey, you're out of compliance, I'm busting you for an FDA violation, he can pull up his phone, hand him a sticker, and it's all there.
Well, I think something that's important is what when you somebody like that, anybody, when you're moving from city or state to the next, and different demographics and different seeds and different genetics, it changes when things peak. And if the state gets backed up from when they're coming out to test, and now you have a hot product versus, the intent is really a key piece. And that's what I see as so valuable for the state's benefit, right? I understand very much the benefit as the consumer or the farmer or the grower, but being able to fix this problem for the state or the government side is really where I see a solution that has to be talked about, right? Is they right away can pull records or know where people are at. Where are they getting product? And me as a manufacturer, for example, the state would know exactly which farms I grew, I pulled each product from.
Yep.
So if I need to go back and say, okay, I've got bad product, or I've got a product that's testing heavy in metals, and now I can go back and identify which farm specifically out of the 5 farms I purchased from. That's a big value add at mitigating risk for our state.
And it's a PR difference too. I mean, so imagine, we've all seen the stories of XYZ company did a horrible recall and they're not making anything. And then they come out real sheepishly, like 2 days later, like, well, we found out that on Friday the 13th, and it's just this, you scream at your TV like you're an idiot. Like, how can you do that? You're a terrible business person, right? But imagine the flip side of that is the CDC calls, says, hey, Mandy, you've got a contaminated product. You need it out of the market right now. Cool, no problem. I'm going to jump on Facebook Live real fast. Hey, everybody, this is Mandy. We just found out, we're made aware that we have a contaminated product. It came from Dave Johnson's farm in little corner county of whatever state. It was harvested on the 14th of September. It moved to this location at this point, was into these products. Anything that has this batch number on it needs to be returned to us immediately, and we will send you a refund. That's the best company in the world. I want to buy everything from those guys. Like, send me more product, because that's somebody that cares about me as a consumer versus somebody's like, look, we don't care. Just don't eat it.
How does this work as a resource for, say, a government entity or a large entity say even an association, right? That anybody could come back and say, hey, I want to verify this product. I want to check this product.
Yep.
As a buyer, right? We get any of these big buyers, say we get Patagonia that comes in and they say, hey, I want to know, or let's go back to the health and wellness side, more around some of these big MLMs, right? And they want to know, they're looking to buy big volume of either distillate or isolate or even a hemp flower crude, right? And then they're going to manufacture themselves, but it's coming from all over. They now can go back and pull records, from my understanding, and know the statistics on that farm, right? So both on the consumer safety and the buyer safety, this solves a lot of problems, right?
Yeah. It also goes as far as so everyone in this industry is concerned about being an ethical person or being a good person, right?
Sure.
And it's part of the community, right? We all want to do business with good people. So if somebody is telling me that, hey, I've got this product and they're misrepresenting any number of facts, right? The way that I mean, I'm a former bouncer, so I call people on lies all the time when I was bouncing. I loved it. I was also an art student, so someone hand me a fake ID. I'm like, look, the resolution on your printer is terrible. Up the resolution. The background color's off by at least 4 shades of magenta. Just fix this and come back next week. And people just kind of look at me like, you can't do that. So, but the way that you vet somebody, if you come to me and you ask me a factual data point that I can validate, hey, is this truly what you're selling me? Yeah, I can prove it. I'm not offended by that because I'm a good person. I'm a good business person. I want to do ethical business. And I would much rather have somebody go, hey, prove it to me, and then prove it to them, than somebody go, hey, can you prove it to me? Like, maybe let me find, I think I got the thing where.
We've got to wait for our office manager to get in. She has all the passwords. Yeah. And then she'll get me into that document that someone shared.
That credibility goes from here to here in 2 seconds. And, our platform, we kind of realized it when we first started talking to Chris Fontes, that we are kind of a bad broker's nightmare, which is why we like Chris, because Chris does things the right way. And he now owes me $5. But when
am I paying for all these plugs?
Yeah, Chris. Yeah, we're just going to PayPal it. It's not a big deal. But Chris, we talked to Chris at one point, and we realized that if you're an unethical broker and you're the person I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy who has some product, you as the person buying or selling, go prove it. And with our platform, you can. And if you can't prove it, then all of a sudden these people are, absolutely not loving life because we can poke holes in their argument all day long just because it's data. Yeah.
You guys are awesome. Well, and I think that this is exactly what this industry needs, right? And we've been talking about this since the beginning, is until these type of systems come into place and understanding what the pain points were, it was hard to implement them. And no discredit to anybody that is still running on a Excel spreadsheet or entering passwords. We all started there, right? But when we talk about being able to scale and enter real business, this is part of it. And same to, how close do you work with like GMP companies?
You're reading my mind. So okay. We're in the process of vetting our solution as a full laboratory LIMS software. We've got one university that we're starting with and another one that we will probably start with here in the next month or two. So we'll be a hemp-specific limb platform for that. We have been sitting in on every GMP conversation we can, which the first thing that everyone in GMP says is you need to document your stuff. And every time I'm a good loaded question person. So I say, hey, how are you documenting? Do you recommend documenting this information? Excel, Google Docs, really anything. And it's not, Google Doc is great. We use Google Docs for a lot of things that we do, but they're not a searchable database with hard links to the things that you need. So, but yeah, so if you're trying to get to GMP compliance, we actually just worked with a company out of Arkansas that did a full gap audit. In Arkansas, they were the one company that went down the hemp version of this versus the marijuana version of this. And their gap audit came back because they're trying to be GMP compliant. And they're trying to be a big national brand, which is awesome for them. Their biggest hole in their audit was they don't document their data as much as they need to. And yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to connect you with someone, David at the GMP Collective. He was on one of our calls. His group, he's got a big group of advisors nationally that I think this would be very valuable, your organization, that would be very valuable for them. And then also on the insurance side, I'm curious about. We talk about risk for insurance, and a lot of these big insurance companies, yes, there's insurance policies out there, but they're astronomically expensive. All of them exclude, or a lot of them exclude hemp. Some of them have, surrounding crop coverage, or it's just not practical. And when I went and met with one of the largest insurance companies nationally just the other day, they're looking to write policies, but having a hard time understanding what are the risks on the farm side. Is this something that they can now use or collaborate with to be able to write policies to protect our farmers and our manufacturing facilities?
100%. So I was asked to speak at the Iowa Power Farming Show, which it's like 40 or 50 acres of ag under roof. It was insane. Awesome. But was asked to speak at one of the breakouts. And so I got up there to talk about hemp. And it was great because I said, all right, so who in here is growing hemp? And nobody raised their hand. I'm like, who in here wants to grow hemp? And nobody raised their hand. I'm like, what the hell are you guys doing in here? And we went around the room because there were, 20 people. Like crop insurance, crop insurance, crop insurance, crop insurance, crop insurance, crop insurance. Every single person in that breakout was an insurance broker for crop insurance, because they need to be able to validate with data and tracking of that data and that growth cycle, what is going on in that field and what's happening. And, because they need to be able to approve or deny a claim.
Yep.
So
and to write the policy to support and protect the farmer, right? What I'm hearing a lot is, the risk of, they could write a policy, say, for drought, because some crops are heavy, are drought risk, where I'm not sure that cannabis does have the drought risk. But, what about when it gets hot or freeze? The damage that happens at a late freeze, like in Colorado this year, it pretty much crushed a lot of their crops.
Yeah, and with Iowa recently, I mean, you've got the giant grain bins that you see dotted over the landscape are crushed like beer cans. The corn crop this year, I mean, I saw crops that had come back from the initial blowdown that there wasn't a single ear of corn on them because it got stripped off by the 120 mile an hour winds, and it was folded up, and it looked more like a yucca plant than it did a corn plant. And I honestly don't know how some of these farmers are going to recover from that.
That's what I'm wondering.
But I mean, the data set of that and how to understand that, and that goes back to what we talked about earlier with the government side of it. We don't charge the government for a license to see our system because they're basically running a report, which is no drag on what we do. We also do it. So I was talking to another state still in the early stages, but they were like, well, yeah, but what's this cost? I'm like, it doesn't cost you anything. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm not going to charge you a dime to use this software. Well, how do you pay for it? The people who use the system will pay for it with their subscriptions because they're getting a benefit of increased value and trackability and, good business practices and things like that.
It's security. If I can prove my intent, when I go back and I read some of these rules, and especially things coming down from like the DEA, is our intent. If you can prove intent that you're growing hemp is very different than cannabis, even when you're at that 1% threshold, right? And like you said earlier, it's not illegal to grow hemp. The product you have to destroy it after it becomes hot, right? And mitigating that and understanding that. And again, I think it comes back to that solution of where did I intend and where did I go wrong? What happened? And identifying that. Was it a plot of land? And I'm sure on the farmer side, when we talk about consumer cost, can a farmer track down to acreage or plots of land. And
yeah, if you want to do an R&D field, you can track to an individual plant, and you don't have to use an RFID tag. That's so everyone's like, I don't want to buy RFID tag. I'm like, we don't need RFID tags. Well, you need RFID tags. No, we don't need RFID tags. It's hemp. I mean, go put an RFID tag on a field of fiber. Go grow 400 acres of fiber hemp and tell me where to put the RFID tag. I dare you. But that tracking system and that ability to see all that takes away the gut feeling. Like, I feel like this is what I did last year, so I should do it again. And a lot of times hard data will tell you to do the opposite of your gut because the data doesn't lie. It doesn't care. So when we talk to state agencies, the other thing we run into is places that aren't super hemp friendly or cannabis friendly. The one thing that nobody wants to do is pay for it with their tax dollars, right? I don't want to pay tax money for these reefer madness people and these terrible, horrible people that are just growing medicine. I don't want to pay for them with my tax dollars. We're honestly the only platform that goes, cool, you don't have to. The people that are going to use it will be the ones that will fund it. Your budgets are shot to hell with COVID right now. Don't worry about it. You don't have to pay for it. We got it. We're actually, one of our partnerships, we're charging them $1 because their guidelines are such they have to have a payment. So we're charging them $1. We're going to give them two 1937 half dollars because that's when the Marijuana Tax Act passed. And they're going to ceremoniously pay us with two 1937 half dollars that we're going to give them so that we can have the photo op with these two coins. So
sure. Well, I think that I know that in Utah, this is a point of conversation often, and the cost effectiveness is a huge point of contention when we talk about RFID tags. And I've heard on some of these systems, you're being charged every time that tag is scanned, or you pay for it. And then really, who's to say that you don't take that right off of the box and put it on something else? Yeah. And now my crop of 90 pounds or 90,000 pounds of smokable hemp flower is actually RFID tagged to 90,000 pounds of premium cannabis.
And that's the hard part. I mean, it's people did make the same thing with blockchain. Blockchain is an awesome tool. We've played with the concept of it, but blockchain works great for cryptocurrency because it's intangible. I can't go in and change a Bitcoin hash. There's no point to it, right? It devalues my crypto at that point. Mm-hmm. But with blockchain and tangible goods, so we actually talked to some PhD level guys that wrote a paper out of Switzerland and the UK, where they had an example that was great that I love, which is if I want to put a physical blockchain thing and put a sensor in the back of the truck that registers that truck was kept at 70 degrees. If I'm a bad actor, I go out and buy a 99-cent styrofoam cooler, put a little fan in there, and super glue it around that sensor. Well, it keeps it at 70 degrees, but that sensor doesn't know that the rest of the semi-truck is 120 degrees baking in the sun, but right. Because of the blockchain, it's there. The other big one, especially in this industry, that's a big fearful point is genetics. If I create a genetic plant that the unicorn, it can never go hot no matter what you do to it. If somebody with deeper pockets and better traction to get onto a blockchain can get my genetic material by buying a seed, which is what I'm probably doing, is selling seeds. If they can get my genetics into their blockchain before I can get my genetics into that blockchain, they own it for the rest of eternity.
I hope people are listening and just heard you, because that's a huge thing when we talk about genetics and IP addresses and how do you patent cannabis. I hadn't even considered this being what you just said, hadn't crossed my mind yet, I guess, when we talk about the money piece, yes, the track and trace piece, yes, but the understanding that your genetics and how do you own that genetic and how do you keep people from picking it up and tampering with it is you really have to have a system like blockchain that allows you to protect or understand exactly what each step of the process is, right? And be able to visibly share it.
And the system that we're using has been used in banking for decades. And truthfully, it's not a high value target for hackers. because it's not something you can hang your hat on. Hey, I hacked some blockchain. So, but the other thing too is, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, but one of the big differences here, I keep forgetting I'm bald. I shaved my head about 2-3 years ago, and so now it's gap certification. All right, we'll get to that. But the big thing is always cost, right? How much does it cost? And when you talk about the systems that are in place for most people's frame of reference, it's a subscription, it's RFID tags, it's reports, they nickel and dime you, and we don't want to do that. We don't care. The value to us is being in the marketplace and working with states and other things to provide the data sets to build the infrastructure that will happen. Because hemp is the first crop ever that has gone from illegal to legal in 100 years or more. I mean, the only other thing I can think of that's even remotely close would be alcohol during Prohibition, and then it's back. So we will charge farmers $20 per acre per year, which is nothing. I mean, if you're a 1 acre farmer, to get out of $100,000 in legal fees, that's worth it, in my opinion. Processors that are working with contracts and farmers and all that, we charge $17 per licensed acre per farmer. So you as a farmer can see what your processor's doing or your extractor is doing with your product after you've delivered it to them. The processor or extractor can then see what the farmer is doing in the field. So if there is a problem early on, you have direct line of sight into each other's data. You can communicate, you can work out things, you can make better data-driven decisions because you're connected through that data set. And so it's fun like that. But as far as gap, sorry, I'll jump back around, but as far as the gap side of it, good agricultural practices, good, and even the regular gap audit that people are used to, they're both boil down to the same thing. Is you have to have a standard operating procedure, a procedure, and typically it's a notebook of some kind that, here's our procedure. Good ag call. Yeah. But when you get into that world, it's all about if X, then Y, right? It's that correlation of what you do and how that works. And if this happens, how do you handle that? So in a lab space, when you're not talking about the agricultural side, they will have 3-ring binders that are this thick of every possible contingency and all that. The way that you then validate that is by tracking those points along the way. So some things, like in a lab setting, if you're testing for potency, you might have 5 to 10 data points that you have to put in at different steps along the way from the time it's received to the time the COA ships out. With agriculture, it's different, and different states, different requirements. When in doubt, if there's an easy platform, which we like to think that we have, the more data you can put in there, the better it is, because it's more robust. You can then see contingencies you didn't even know about pop up and solve them. So,
what about a bit for say a lab to be able to see trends?
Now that is data science, which is a whole different ballgame, which is where we came from. So the predictive side of data and the analytic side of data, the data visualization is what our parent company's done for 12 years. So that side of things is where we really are eager to get to that point, because we'll be able to do things, predict different levels of any number of, I'm being really vague here. I'm trying to get something. So a good example is we're working with a company that's doing some telehealth for medicinal use, and they're starting with hemp. So they will have a data set of all their patients, which there's HIPAA compliance. There's also HIPAA compliant data. So that HIPAA compliant data we'd have access to. They're also working with veterans. So you have service records. And then on top of that, you also have any pre-existing conditions or anything like that with VA or any claims they may have filed. So in a perfect world, there's a lot of moving pieces there. And I know someone's screaming right now. But in a perfect world, if all that data can be HIPAA compliant, which it can be, you just have to strip out certain parts, you would be able to predict a veteran who went to Afghanistan, who was 242 days in country, spent more than 26% of his time at a forward operating base or under direct fire, has a 72.4% chance of PTSD. And because of their age and because they're in Georgia, in this county, the access to healthcare and the access to those things means that they will have a higher than likely chance of suicide. Therefore, you should put them on medication, get them taking hemp or cannabis, and outreach and talk to them more hands-on. That sounds absolutely insane to people when you think about it, but those overlapping data points, even if you're 60% accurate, that's somebody's life that you could save. And that's what we want to do at the state is here's how you do better hemp, you know.
And reality is the technology is there. It's available for us. It's not like yes, it seems crazy and hard to wrap your mind around as far as capabilities, but the data is there. It's a matter of having a company like yours with experience like yours to be able to put it together and say, oh, we can relate all of these other practices or experiences in all of these other industries, and they relate into hemp, right? It's same with a lot of the technology, even for the extraction process, is coming over to the hemp industry, right? Yeah. And I think that this isn't new, not reinventing the wheel. It's just adapting a little bit into what the needs are and understanding those. Yeah. I would love to connect you with David Rockwood. I saw he made some comments and was listening. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to connect with him, but he uses a satellite technology to pull some different data. I'm really excited to potentially do a carbon footprint, pull some data on carbon footprint, and he's got some great technology on that also. Yep. What's your...
Because we own the intellectual property on the back end tracking of this, We've talked to a Dutch shipping company about running all their fleet on seed oil rather than bunker fuel to generate carbon credits that they can then turn around and sell in the open market to offset some of the costs they have. And the only way they can do that is if they track it. And so the things that we have in the wings from our parent company standpoint down to the different legs and all that, it's a lot of fun, and I get to play around in those different areas at different times. But right now the focus is definitely on the hemp side of it because hemp needs it more than anything else. And we would rather be the incumbent that has a solution that actually listens to the people using it and takes direct feedback and says, you're right, that's a stupid feature, we'll get that gone tomorrow. Versus somebody who's just being a pest in the industry. That's what we want to do.
Well, and I think that's the big difference, right? Data, it doesn't lie. Pay attention to the numbers and what works. There's a lot of really passionate people that get very emotional about this industry and about what's happening. And sometimes it's just not worth the fight, or we have to redirect. But I think that it would be a great connection to connect with David. And I'd love to see where it can go, because I believe probably more or as much as you do that this is really going to change the industry, and it's going to take the data to walk into somebody that it's not a belief, it's not a passion anymore. These are our facts, and here we show it.
And data is a great jumping off point, because hemp and cannabis is a passionate industry. Everyone that I've ever met is passionate. You can't be in this space and not have a passion for it. The stories that people have, I mean, I think I've seen you cry on this twice talking to people. But and I won't make you cry.
I'm wearing a Speak for the Trees shirt today.
But, passion is great, but passion, when someone doesn't understand your passion, can lead to conflict and yelling and why aren't you understanding and that kind of feeling, which is confrontational, which people back away from. We're not a confrontational society anymore. Data and proving it with data and third-party data, like we as a company made a decision that we will never grow our own product, because it puts us on. So we speak to the lawmakers and we speak to the producers. So we have to speak both languages, right? And as soon as we put ourselves to where we can grow our own product, then we lose that validity with the lawmakers and things like that. So when we go in and talk to them, like, look, you have X number of people doing this that are needing a remediation facility to meet this new DEA guideline, or we need this facility built here and subsidized by the state to bring you X number of dollars in the next year. I mean, it's something where that data is what they need, and they are more open to listening to data because that's what they're going to regurgitate when they get elected.
Okay, so I need some serious conversations with you because this is where we lean on people like you and companies like you within this association so that we can make changes to benefit the industry, right? So understanding what those are, I would love to pick up.
Well, and if you're going to lean, hold on, I just got this the other day. My strain cane.
Oh, okay. What is this?
This is there's a company called Strain Canes, and the people that run it are awesome. But this is a Boss Hog High Country Genetics cannabis stock that's turned into a walking stick.
Okay, I need one of those.
Yeah, I had to have one, and we put them on the blog and we found it randomly, like Facebook algorithm or something like that. But I bought this thing, and it weighs next to nothing. It's a great. I mean, I have a bad knee.
Perfect. We go hiking a lot up at Zion for Angel's Landing and stuff, and we're always fighting for sticks. But we need to put one of those on Sarah's website also.
Yep, I think I connected Sarah to that. These guys as well. I tipped him off that you guys may want to have him on, but he's super awesome guy and did that custom. So you can reach out and custom request it. So I told him I wanted a strain that was pretty cool, and he definitely delivered. I mean, it's lightweight and strong like you'd expect from hemp, but
I'm stoked. Yeah. I love it.
They can put crystals in there too. So if you want to go full Gandalf, you can do that as well. My girlfriend called me Gandalf a lot walking with that. So
I do for the trees. And I will use it. So it's good. Yeah. And I'm tall like you, so I'm going to need a custom.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate having you on. I'd love to move this conversation forward. Let's connect maybe later today. I've got a group I'd love to chat with and maybe draw you in on some conversations. Also, as much involved in some of these steering committees where these are really being addressed on a larger scale, both specific to Utah and on the national level.
Yeah, I think it's just getting everyone on the same page is going to be really vital to this. And then, the more that you can rely on data, because people think the things that people get swayed by are the data visualization pieces. So being able to take what is essentially a spreadsheet and make it a pie chart sounds easy, but making it in a meaningful way only comes if you have good data. And that's where we're stepping up to fill that void in the hemp space. And we love working with people that are passionate about it, because when they start wrapping their heads around it, the data points and things that come out of it are crazy. We've got Tim Harms, who's with Harvest 360 Labs. Yeah. He's been working with us on some different things, and he now is at the point where he's like, "What are you doing with the data? Where's the data? Do you have the data? How do you track that? How do you do this?" He's a big pharma guy turned hemp cannabis advocate, and he's doing all kinds of cool stuff. And I think you should have his email too if you guys want to ever have him on. But he's a good dude, but he has turned into a data monster. I have to rein him in a couple times. It's like easy.
Well, this is where my wheels are turning, because I'm with you that this is what we need in order to bridge the gap, to be able to have the conversation with the people that are making the decisions that are not deep in with experience, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big difference. It's a lot of the people we talk to have personal experience, and so they're very passionate because they know, right? These other people are hearing, and but facts and numbers are going to speak a completely different language. So I'd love to explore what that looks like. In the meantime, and we're out of time, but how do people get in touch with you, Justin, if they have questions or want to get involved or use your software? Yeah,
so we actually have a link for the Utah CBD Collective, where anyone who signs up through that gets 10% off. All the stuff is on the website, obviously. And then if you want to get a hold of me, it's just justin@hempbatchtracker.com. I'm a software guy, so I'm not out in the field all day. So if you need to get hold of me, I will probably see the email come in unless I'm out grabbing lunch or something. But we are talking to anybody and everybody that'll listen, because we are a sponge looking for water. And if somebody has a use for data, or has a need for it, or has a use case that they think might not work. I mean, we talked to a dryer company, a hemp drying equipment company, and they're like, "Yeah, we totally need this. There's tons of data we need to track." And we're like, "With drying hemp, like it really? Like moisture content? Like, oh no. And they went through the whole list. It was just like, oh yeah, well, we can track that. So,
something that I'm curious about is like the input, the reports from, and I don't know what they're called specifically, you're going to know, but when during extraction process, whether it's taken wet or dried, the testing the product prior and then each stage between, so that you can show what the full cannabidiol profile that's being taken and all of. I'm curious about what that looks like on a true testing level.
I'll put it to you this way: if you don't know what it looks like a nightmare, and that's why I keep my tech guys as happy as possible with as much pizza parties and booze and rounds of golf. I mean, whatever they want, they get it because they are doing the hard work that would drive me insane. So,
okay,
you have a tech person at your company, treat them right because they'll treat you right and find you millions of dollars long term. So.
True that. One more shout out. Anybody wants to join our event next Thursday? I wish that you were in town, Justin, and you're welcome to come out. But we're doing a trap
13
shoot.
hours. Not a lot of traffic right now.
Hey, we may be good. But there's a trap shoot event. Wasatch Wing and Clay. I added the link. Go ahead and register. Feel free to share. It is an executive level breakfast and trap shoot to get together with the industry before we can't anymore. So
I would absolutely love doing that. So I've got a design background. So industrial design. So I was a product designer out of college. So I shoot trap. And for those of you who shoot trap will find this odd. But I shoot trap with an AK-47 12 gauge.
That's awesome, actually.
So it's I hunt turkey with it. I hunt ducks and geese and sporting clays and all that kind of stuff. And I pull it out and be like, you can't do that. Like, yeah, you can. It's 12 gauge. And they.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Called a Saiga 12. So if anyone's looking for something that will work anywhere and everywhere, that's
it. Okay. Well, it may be my own my new home defense weapon.
If you can find them. So, but yeah, at some point we'll definitely get down there, and because Utah's beautiful, and everybody we've met through you guys has been awesome. So
I'd love to come out and visit you guys. I'd really like to see the industrial spot. I'd really like to see the Midwest. True. So we really don't have a lot of industrial or a lot of fiber growing. So I'd love to come out where it really is growing like weeds in your backyard.
I mean, you can't throw a rock and not hit it. I actually was curious to see if I could. I knew I liked Chris for a reason, but yeah, you can't. I actually was curious how far I'd have to go from my house downtown in Omaha to find feral hemp. And I think when I was walking my dog, there was one growing behind a dumpster. So it's just.
It really is. That I was meaning before events are no longer allowed. Right now they're restricted, but before we spike or peak at all, I feel like this is maybe one more hurrah before, or if I'd like to say it won't, but chances are good with flu season coming, things are going to slow down quite a bit. Events are going to come to a halt. Not only that, but cold weather, right? This is a great time before Wasatch Wing and Clay gets really busy for pheasant hunting and the cold weather. So Please join. I'd love to have you guys. Justin, we'll be in touch here pretty soon. I'd love to really brainstorm some ways that we can utilize the data and what, as an association, we can do to support. And then to touch base with, how the Midwest is doing as far as association-wise and what we can do to support you.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's looking for the right way to do it, and it's just a question of talking to the right people and answering the phone when somebody has a good idea, and that's 90% of the business is just showing up. So
I have seen a lot of conversation and a lot of great people around tables making movement, and so that excites me. I'm glad to see. I hope you're involved. I'm assuming that you are, but if you need anything, holler at me. We'll be in touch. No,
other than a COVID-free environment, so we can get out and play with our friends more often, and do all that kind of fun stuff.
Yes. Well, sooner than later.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll see you later, Justin. Thank you.
Thanks again. See you, everybody.
See ya. Bye-bye.